Hello and welcome to another video from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. In this latest captain video, we're doing things a little bit differently, as you might have noticed. Joe is on his holidays this week, so today I am joined by Neale, who's going to play the role of David Monday, and I'll be filling in for Joe. Welcome Neale. How you doing?
Not too bad, Joe. How's yourself? You're looking a bit different.
Yeah, no, I've grown some ginger hair. I support Reading instead of Brighton now. You know, lots of changes in my life. I now live in David Monday's house. So yeah, I've not hosted one of these before, so hopefully technically everything goes okay. It's the first time for me, but you know, thankfully we've got some things to get our teeth into. We've got perhaps one of the most difficult captain decisions of the season for a lot of people. Kind of hinges on whether or not you have any Arsenal players, I suppose. But obviously the main reason that's tricky for a lot of people is because it's a blank game week. Manchester City, Chelsea, Everton, Brighton all not involved, so there's two teams there who we might consider captaining players for, two teams we might have considered captaining players against, so they're not in the mix. That's very frustrating. And of course, the other big problem with this game week is we've got Manchester United and Liverpool, two of the teams that we normally look at playing each other. Potentially tough game to call. So yeah, Neale, let's start there. I mean, tricky game, but should we maybe look at some options in that one?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's when you first set up your team for the coming game week after a deadline has passed, you make a good choice on who you think the best captain's going to be. It was, as you say, it's trickier this week then, and there wasn't really one outstanding candidate, at least not in my team, as a non-Arsenal owner. But yeah, Man United Liverpool. The fixture trickier this week itself wasn't really one outstanding candidate. I'm captaining someone like Salah, but there's sort of one or two factors that may make you a little bit more confident about captaining Liverpool asset, for example. Now, we're recording this on Monday, and we've still got another, 4 days before the deadline and 6 days before this game actually takes place. So in that time, we'll have the Man United-Chelsea FA Cup tie and the Liverpool versus Bayern Champions League tie. So there's a lot can still happen during that time. As we speak, Martial and Lingard were doubts for Gameweek 27. Now, there was a story breaking last night from the Daily Mirror, I think it was, who said that they might be back for this game. Now, I think that's a factor that's possibly been overlooked when it comes to Liverpool captaincy candidacy this week. I think we saw last week that when Martial and Lingard went off against PSG, the game turned on its head. I think without them two, alongside Rashford up front, sort of exact a press or to worry that a high line, then they're possibly more susceptible defensively. But I think we saw in the second half of that game with Mata and Sanchez playing up top that PSG were a bit more adventurous. Now, Liverpool's probably watched that game and thought, well, yeah, that's if those two are still sidelined, there's routes into what has been a pretty good defence over the past 6-7 game weeks. 4 clean sheets for Man United, all of which, it should be said, have come away from home. So, yeah, off-putting fixture on paper, but I think if we monitor the team news through the week, it's perhaps not quite as bad as initially it looks. I think the fact that Liverpool scored in every away game this season, and that Man United's only got one home clean sheet all season as well. I think that's sort of should sort of play on people's minds a bit. I think it's not a given that you shouldn't captain Salah or Mane this week. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on this yourself.
Yeah, I think I mean I was the same as most managers. I kind of just looked at the fixtures and thought, well, yeah, that does look tough to call. And largely, I've stayed away from matches like this for the captaincy. Not so much with owning players. I mean, I'm going into this game with 4 players in this game. A lot of people will be doing some people may even be going in with 5. Which is part of the reason why people just don't like the look of this game week. But as you mentioned there, I think that there will be goals in this game, and there's definitely reasons to think that, because if we look at the last 4 game weeks in terms of the goal threat, there's a very high proportion of players playing in this game who have been very accurate and shooting lots of times. So. Obviously, Aguero's top of the charts with shots on target. That's absolutely no use to us this week. But Mane and Salah, are they're not far behind. They're on 8 and 7 respectively. Mane's had 13 shots, 12 in the box. Salah 15 shots, 9 in the box. United lads as well, so Rashford and Pogba. 7 shots on target for Rashford, 6 for Pogba. 18 and 17 shots total respectively. So you know, a lot of people sometimes, go for form over fixture. If you're looking for a form player going into this game week, then someone playing in this game is worth thinking about. As you've mentioned, Man United without any home clean sheets under Solskjaer so far. Potential for them to be not quite as defensively sound as they even were, before because of these injuries. But if we look at the just a comparison of the two teams, from these are all taken from the members area. Interestingly enough, what we've done on the left, what you can see is Man United in the last 4 home matches, and on the right is Liverpool in the last 4 away matches. And we can actually see that goal attempts conceded for United is less in that time than Liverpool have conceded away from home, which is really interesting when we consider how good Liverpool have been defensively this year. But of course, in recent weeks that has slipped a bit. So then we look at the goal threat as well. Man United, according to this, more likely to score at home at Old Trafford than Liverpool would be away, based on the form of home versus away last 4. So actually, I still think that a Man United option is worth considering for people who are particularly brave, maybe want to make use of the fact that this game week is a bit of a curveball for a lot of people. We're going to talk in a minute about Arsenal players. Arsenal players are probably going to be highly captained. So there is an opportunity for people to look outside of that at a player who has been reliable. So Salah fits that bill. I think Rashford and Pogba fit that bill as well, based off what they've done. I can't see much to suggest that either team's going to keep a clean sheet. So with that in mind and the form of all of these players, definitely a strong case for captaining any of them, really. The bottom line, I guess, is it is going to be tough to call. These sorts of games, maybe the managers take a different approach because it's a big game. The two teams have history with each other. Liverpool going for the league. Man United would love to stop them from doing it, but of course, if they do that, they maybe help their rivals Man City out. So mentally, it's going to be a strange game, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if Mourinho was still in charge, ironically, you'd probably be less inclined to captain a Liverpool asset, even though he was in stinking form by the time he left the club. Because these are the type of games where he would close up shop. He would try and stymie Liverpool's attack. I'm not sure Solskjaer's really got that in his locker. I think I'd be leaning more towards a Liverpool captain than a Man United one. I think I was looking at Salah's XGI, so for the uninitiated. This is expected goal involvement, so went up to calculate how likely it is that you'll get a goal or assist based on the quality of your chances or chance created. And Salah's top for XGI away from home in the last 6 game weeks, and I think in the last the game as the season as a whole. So yeah, I sort of ruled it out immediately when I set up my team for this week, but the more I'm considering it, I don't think it's a particularly bad option.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's definitely worth thinking about, I think, for people.
Yeah.
But if people are put off by the unpredictable nature, perhaps, of that game, then maybe Arsenal is the place to look, which seems to be how people have been thinking up till now. They're already proving popular in our poll. So Aubameyang, in the poll we put up this morning, already raced into a 52% lead, which is crazy. Obviously, a long way to go, but he does look the overwhelming favourite going into a game that Arsenal have against Southampton. People have had it on their radar for a long time, actually. This has been a lot of the reasons why people have maybe signed Aubameyang in recent weeks. Personally, myself, I'm a little bit sceptical with Aubameyang. He was looking really, really dangerous probably about a month and a half ago, but there hasn't really been an opportunity that I've seen in recent weeks where I've wanted to sign him. He's kind of his shots have dwindled. Going into game week 26, he didn't even make the top 20 for shots on target in the league, and especially away from home, he's hard to trust. Although, of course, this game is going to be at the Emirates. But him as an asset is one that I wouldn't want to own long term, for example. So, I mean, while he looks good for this week, I think a lot of people people might consider bringing Aubameyang in now because they want to captain him now. But do you want him beyond these couple of game weeks, especially with Aguero looking very, very good? Maybe some people want to start prepping for game week 31 without using a free hit. So there's lots of reasons to not own Aubameyang this week. And if I was looking at one Arsenal player, I'd probably be looking at Lacazette if I was to pick one of them. To me, he looks in slightly better form statistically, so he's got better minutes per chance than Aubameyang in the last last 4 game weeks, I should say. And interesting enough, just the table that we've put up here is something that we had in our analysis of Arsenal players for Blank Game Week 27 going into it, just where those Arsenal strikers actually compare with other strikers in the league for minutes per chance, and it's not that great. I mean, obviously this factors in some away games as well, but there are other options out there who are shooting more often. So actually bringing someone in for one game week, maybe two for next week, for me is quite questionable. But of course, if it pays off, then maybe it works out, because I know, Neil, you've been looking specifically at Aubameyang at the Emirates, and it looks pretty ominous, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I think there's two questions here. Is A, whether you want Aubameyang long term or even medium term, and or B, whether you think this is just a one-off game week punt. Because I think there's no doubt that an Arsenal forward is probably the best captaincy option as a one-off decision. But it's obviously how that affects your team structure beyond that. So yeah, Aubameyang at home. Last half dozen at the Emirates. So if you filter players by the last 6 home fixtures, Aubameyang comes top of everybody for expected goal involvement. So that's XGI again. I think that's about 2 more goals than anybody else. And he's averaged, I think, 9.5 FPL points per game in his last 6 starts at the Emirates, which is, fairly conclusive evidence that he's more of a home player than he is away from home. The other factor that we're probably going to come on to in a second, I think you're going to raise this yourself, but is the Europa League, which takes place on Thursday night. So the Arsenal's 1-0 down from the first leg. Now Lacazette was sent off during the first leg of that encounter in Belarus, and he'll be missing this Thursday. So you would think that Aubameyang will definitely start that. I think particularly given that Arsenal's 1-0 down, you need to claw back that deficit. Now that Thursday night game is less than 72 hours before Arsenal take on Southampton at the Emirates. So that's something fantasy managers might have to factor into their thoughts. We've been here before, of course. We sort of speculate that Aubameyang might get a rest over Christmas, and he ended up playing the full festive period. I don't think he's been rested since game week 9, and it's not like he's been flogged recently. He was missing last weekend against Huddersfield. Arsenal didn't have an FA Cup fixture this weekend. He only played 25 minutes against Barty in the first leg, so he's not exactly fatigued, you would say. But Lacazette will be fully fresh for that Southampton game anyway, because he won't play any part on Thursday night.
Yeah, I think that's something that we'll obviously have to be looking at maybe in press conferences perhaps after that Arsenal game, because you're right. I mean, it's one of those ones where people could end up overthinking it, because as we both agree, if you've got Aubameyang in your squad right now, he's looking a very strong captaincy candidate, absolutely. But there may be that slight doubt that he doesn't play, for example, because of the factors you've just mentioned. But at the same time, as you've also mentioned, he's not been benched in a very long time in the Premier League. The only times he's been missing has been through illness or injury or what have you. So it's a tough one. I'm glad, from a personal perspective, I'm glad I don't actually own him right now, because I think if you do, there's potential for you to play mind games on yourself, because there's pros and cons for whether or not he's going to play.
The fear is that by not getting him, you're going to miss out on the big capture score of this game week. If you can sort of take it, like I can think back to, you remember the Tottenham v Cardiff home game when everyone lumped on Kane?
Yeah.
Well, that sort of parallels with that a little bit. It's whether you want to disrupt your team structure for this one game week. Now, yes, he could easily go and score a hat-trick against Southampton, who have improved, I would say, since Hasenhüttl's took charge. They're not being particularly solid at the back, but they're definitely more of a prospect than they were under Hughes. It's a tricky one, and I think you'll be writing Captain Sensible later in the week, I'm assuming, and it's something that we'll, as you say, you'll need to monitor when we get to press conference time, and possibly after the Europa League games finished as well, which will be Thursday night, which doesn't give us a lot of time because there's a Friday night deadline this week. But still a lot to consider before we make our final decisions.
Well, just to touch on Southampton there, and what they've been up to defensively. Again, it's a mixed bag, and it really is. You're going to have to pick whichever stat you prefer. So, last 4 away games, they're in the bottom 5 for goal attempts conceded in the box. Watford are bottom of that with 50, Southampton 41. So, not in a particularly great place. But when you filter that by big chances, only 5 of those have been big chances, and the other 4 members of the bottom 5, Watford, West Ham, Newcastle and Bournemouth, are all 13, 14, 15 and 16. So, they're allowing lots of shots, but they're not allowing lots of quality shots. So, again, there's it really is Schrodinger's cat at this point as to whether or not that Southampton could go there and play really well, concede lots of shots, and maybe Bednarak comes out with a double-figure haul from blocking loads of shots that weren't particularly quality, or that volume of shots allows Aubameyang or Lacazette or whoever starts that game to have a bit of a field day. So definitely lots up in the air on that one. So I think maybe that might push people more towards something a bit more consistent, someone who's a guaranteed start. So we're not actually going to go too far away from the Emirates, or rather, the fixture is in Lancashire, but obviously the team is also from North London, and that is Spurs, and obviously the main candidate there is going to be Son. So what do we think about him?
Yeah, when I set my team up for Gameweek 27 after the Gameweek 26 deadline, I put the armband on Son, just as a placeholder, if nothing else. I think form-wise, you were talking about form players earlier with Man United and Liverpool, and there is no one who compares with Son over the last 16 game weeks, I think it is. So in his last 13 starts, he's returned a goal or assist in 12 of them, which is phenomenal.
It's ridiculous.
11 goals, 7 assists in that time. I brought him in, I think it must have been last week actually, Game Week 26. Despite me writing, I think in the digest that these fixtures aren't that great for Spurs. I think they got lucky against Leicester. I think Leicester were the better team, and Son only scored in the last minute, as he often does. He's made a habit of getting late goals. Now Burnley, who were whipping boys at the start of the year, they were conceding goals for fun. They looked nothing like the team we sort of came to rely on last season, when we had a lot of budget defenders from that setup. Since the reverse switch of this game, actually, they've made a steady improvement. Can you remember that the game at the Wembley when it was 1-0, last minute Ericsson goal?
Yeah.
Really, really frustrated Spurs that day. And I was just looking at their defensive record over the last 7 game weeks, and Burnley have got the 3rd best defensive record in the Premier League. So that's 6 goals conceded in 7 matches. They're joint 3rd for fewest big chances conceded, and joint 7th for fewest shots on target conceded as well. So they've made a steady improvement over the last month or so, and it's not quite the Tyson fixture it was or would have been earlier in the season. But given the sort of dearth of options elsewhere and the form he's been in, then he's definitely up there with the leading candidates. And as I said, I've got the armband on him now. That might change. I don't want to lull anybody into thinking that's what I'm going to do. But he's the one who caught my eye initially. And certainly if you're looking at form over fixture, then he's the guy. Yeah,
the interest in him is absolutely understandable. And his consistency for points has just been ridiculous. It's up there with, at the moment, in terms of reliability. It's very reminiscent of Salah last year, where it was just if you own him, you're like, well, I know I'm going to get something from him this week, and that's a big part of the captaincy. If you've got someone who is going to regularly get a goal or an assist, or maybe both. Then they become a more attractive option than someone explosive. So Kane is always seen as the opposite to someone like Salah or Son is right now. Someone who can maybe go big or sometimes just do nothing. So that is going to be a big part of Son. But I'm going to echo some of your sort of concerns over him as an option for the captaincy as well, but more from his perspective. I think obviously you mentioned there that they were fortunate to beat Leicester. The scoreline absolutely did not reflect the way that game went, and I would arguably say that was the same for the Newcastle game. I know that Spurs were on top in that game, and they probably deserved to win based on how many chances they created, but they didn't really create any decent chances. And Son, in particular, he only had 1 shot in the box, and that was the goal that went in. And of course, he has the goalkeeper Dubravka to thank for that. So in those last 2 matches, he has been fortunate to get those returns. And normally, when we see someone have 2 games when they're kind of fortunate to get their returns, we think, well, maybe that run's going to come to an end. Also, statistically, he doesn't really compare with some. We looked at those options at the top of Man United and Liverpool, and we look at Mane, and Salah, 8 and 7 shots on target respectively last 4 game weeks, 7 and 6 for Rashford and Pogba respectively as well in that time period. With Son, it's just 4, and only 5 of his 14 shots have been in the box. And obviously that really doesn't compare with those sort of options. So if there was ever going to be a week where the Son kind of bandwagon has a bit of a blip, I think it could be this one, because as we've mentioned, Burnley's defence increasing in strength as we go along, and Son is due a blank based on the stats and kind of the eye test as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out. But as we said, there's still plenty of other differential options we can look at this week. We, in an article this week, we looked at Arsenal because a lot of people were looking for them. Are they good for game week 27? And what we actually found, comparing them to the rest of the league and looking long term as well, that there's actually quite a nice looking selection at Leicester. The fixtures between now and the end of the season are looking really, really nice. There are going to be people who are going to get in on the Leicester players right now because the fixture at home against Crystal Palace, there's worse fixtures than that. Anyone who is getting in on early on Leicester, are they worth captaining for this game week, or should we hold off until we have something a bit more exciting for them?
I think they're good assets to bring in. I think, especially given that they're guaranteed fixtures in the blank game weeks ahead, and their fixture run, regardless of that, is excellent. I think that they avoid any of the big 6 in the next 9 game weeks. I don't think any other club can say that. Captaincy is a different option. I think that's something that may be a bit of a stretch for Leicester assets. They're a strange team to assess Leicester because they're capable of some absolutely heroic performances. I mean, they haven't won in the last 5 games. I think I've seen every one of their matches against the big 6 teams. So they played Liverpool, Man United and Spurs. So I watched all 3 of those. And they were really good. They were really impressive. Sort of continuing on the form they showed against Chelsea and City over Christmas. And then they went away at Everton and beat them. They're also capable of some absolutely stinking displays at home to the lesser teams, if you can call them that. Think of the Cardiff home defeat, Southampton home defeat. They lost it. Was it Newport County in the FA Cup? They're a strange team to assess, and I think that's what puts me off captaining them. I think this might be a low-scoring affair. They're both decent defensive teams, Leicester and Crystal Palace. I think outside of the big 6. They have, I think there's only Wolves who've conceded fewer goals. So and I think they've got 16 clean sheets between them, those two teams, Palace and Leicester. So I could see this being a very low-scoring 0-0, or perhaps Palace going away and doing a number on Leicester. Now I'm just for clarity, I'll probably bring in a Leicester defender this week. I'm looking at Pereira for Dini, I think, just for the long term. And Pereira's got some decent underlying stats. If anyone's read my article I wrote yesterday, it was on the comparison of Leicester's defensive assets. So Pereira beat Chilwell and threw in a bit of Maguire as well. And Pereira's top for XGI among defenders in 2019, despite playing the likes of Liverpool and Man United and Spurs. So he'd be a maverick choice. He could easily pick up a clean sheet and a cheeky assist, but the dullard in me would I would probably shy away from a captaincy, even if I am seriously considering bringing in a defender for this fixture. So what about yourself? Would you jeopardise your rank for cheeky Maddison captaincy or Pereira?
Probably not. No, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Really, they're good to bring in. Captaincy, probably not. I think you've touched on something really important there with Leicester. Is they are a bit of an enigma of a team this year, and I've said before they feel like the players, the manager, and actually, to be honest, I think primarily the fans, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. I think they're just a bit confused as to what is a realistic expectation for them for this season. Obviously, they won the league, so that is obviously going to always influence everybody for generations to come. A bit like Newcastle, nearly won the league, and then that's heightened expectations over the years. But they played well against Leicester and against Man City and Chelsea and got good results there. But it's that home form, and that's why I completely understand the fans' frustration, because they can go and perform very well away from home against these really big teams, but just get done at home by Cardiff and Southampton. And that's just just an ongoing cycle where what comes first, the bad performance or the kind of the atmosphere not really, the fans not being behind the team, and those two things leech off each other, and it makes for a very uncomfortable setting in home matches. So, while I'm going to bring them in because statistically they look good, the fixtures are good, I do want to see a couple of weeks just to see whether or not Leicester can actually capitalise on these good fixtures. I remember this time last year I was looking at Vardy, for example, because his fixtures looked great. I got him in, and actually, again, he was a kind of player that performed better against the big teams because they tend to leave a bit more space at the back for someone like Vardy to exploit than someone like some of these lesser teams that might come to the King Power and sit back and not allow them the space to operate. So, yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely enough factors for me not to think about Leicester this week. But one team who a lot of people may be thinking about captaining this week, a player from, is West Ham, and obviously that's going to be a fixture pick because they are at home against a Fulham side who defensively have been woeful. West Ham haven't really been great in recent weeks, but when anyone plays Fulham, that always kind of just, you're going to notice that, aren't you? And I know a lot of people are going to be bringing in West Ham players and maybe even captaining them this week. What do you think?
Yeah. This is when Ranieri came into Fulham, he had a little bit of a new manager bounce effect, as there often is. I mean, they were atrocious defensively the first half of the season, and then for about 5 or 6 game weeks, I think he sort of solidified them. They weren't conceding that many chances. They kept even a couple of clean sheets, one against Newcastle, of course. But lately, I mean, they sort of reverted to type. I think this year, so last 6 game weeks that'll be, they're the only club without a clean sheet, for example, which is a bad sign. They've conceded more goals, shots on target, big chances than any other club in this calendar year. So yeah, it's certainly set up for a home win for West Ham, you'd think. Felipe Anderson is possibly the obvious candidate. I mean, I know Arnautovic is sort of fighting back to fitness, but you wonder, how fit and firing he is, and whether he's sort of mentally, strong despite his signing a new contract. I think Felipe Anderson would be the one I'd be looking at anyway. I'm not sure if I've got the team structure to get him in, but he's not in great form himself. 1 assist in his last 7 starts. That's it. No goals. But now I can thank our colleague Paul for this stat. He sent us this morning. He scored 8 goals this season, Anderson, and 7 of them have been against teams in the bottom 8. So he's a what we like as fantasy managers. He's a bit of a flat track bully. It's what you want for captaincy material. And when I did the big numbers piece last week, I found out that Fulham were particularly susceptible on the right flank. They've created the most chances. They've conceded the most chances from that zone. So their right would be West Ham's left in 2019, which is obviously where Anderson plays on that left wing. So yeah, it's in a week where there perhaps isn't an outstanding, premium, well-owned captaincy candidate, then someone like Anderson might be a decent punt, I think. Have you any thoughts on that yourself?
Yeah, no, I think he is one of many differential options this week who could end up doing the business. Fulham last 4 game weeks, most goal attempts conceded in the penalty box in the whole division. So if West Ham have been struggling, because in the last couple of game weeks, if I've had defenders playing against West Ham, I've started them. I've had absolutely no issue doing that because offensively they have struggled ever since basically the whole Arnautovic thing, and then him, I'm sure of his own free will, filmed that video and put it on the Twitter account that looked completely voluntary. It was all a bit weird, and that does seem to have affected them. But even Mark Noble's come out and said that actually, to be honest, it has probably affected them a bit. But this is the perfect game for that to all stop. I think most people, if they've had a couple of games where they haven't done as well as they should, haven't been scoring as many goals as they should, then you look at Fulham and you're licking your lips. So, I'm a big fan of specific matchups in terms of where players play and where teams concede their goals. And absolutely, if there's ever one that stood out, it's that one. The only thing, perhaps just to suggest, Anderson sometimes plays number 10. So it might not necessarily work out exactly that way, but you'd hope that Pellegrini would be aware of the fact that Anderson's very good against the whipping boys. He can operate on the left, and Fulham are very weak there. And I think that Anderson is definitely their best left-sided midfield player, so it would make sense to play.
He's been there mostly, I think. Towards the beginning of the season, he was shuffling around, wasn't he? That front three, he wasn't quite sure of his best order. I think Anderson's been more on the left side now. So yeah, certainly from that matchup perspective, you would think you'd have the nous to blood Anderson against it will be like Tyrese Christie or Dennis Odoi, someone like that. So
yeah, it's good. It's good. I think be a big game for West Ham, that one. Well, I think that's all the main people to talk about. Obviously, we've kind of, I think we've probably gone on for a bit longer than usual, but I think absolutely justified this week because this is an enigma of a game week. As we said, we've got Man City not playing, Chelsea not playing, two teams who you might have considered captaining players for with the people they were going to play. Man United and Liverpool playing each other, so that's obviously going to affect people as well. Obviously, we've looked at that at the top of the video about how maybe there's more goals in that game than people might suspect on first look. But even still, when two big teams play each other, and as you've mentioned, there's no real premium option who's in form with a nice fixture. No one really ticks all of the boxes in one go, which obviously then creates the opportunity for a differential option. And hopefully people have enjoyed this video. We've done it live on a Monday lunchtime, slightly different to usual, just to test out how many people have prepared to sit down and watch this on their lunch break at work, perhaps. But yeah, so as I said, hopefully it's helped people. Obviously, of course, we've still got one more FA Cup match. That's going to be Monday night. So if you're watching this a couple of days' time, we have recorded this before Man United v Chelsea. So at time of recording, we don't know who's won that. That has more of an effect, really, I think, on the blank game week future schedule. But yeah, long way to go until the start of the game. We've got press conferences to come as well. But hopefully this is a good starting point for people. So good luck to everybody with the captaincy. Good luck to you as well, Neil. And we will see you soon.
Yeah, see you for the team news video later in the week.